Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
I'm Andrew Doyle. In a moment, it'll be time for Headliners, where I'll be romping through Wednesday's newspapers with the help of two of my comedian friends. But before that, here's the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Andrew, thank you. The top story tonight, Ghislaine Maxwell has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for helping the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein abuse teenage girls. The British socialite has been convicted of 5 counts, including trafficking young girls to the financier between 1994 and 2004. Ms Maxwell said she hopes the sentence will give her victims peace and finality. Annie Farmer was one of 4 survivors who spoke in court. She said, "It's never too late for the truth to come out."
If you're someone who's experienced sexual abuse or exploitation and did not feel safe to report those crimes, or were not believed when you did, or were told that the perpetrators would not be held accountable, this is for you. There's still a lot of work to be done on this issue, but in this fight we need to celebrate the victories, and today this is a big victory.
Well, in other news today, Turkey has agreed to support Finland and Sweden in their bids for NATO membership. The 3 countries have signed a memorandum that addresses Turkey's concerns, including around arms exports and the fight against terrorism. Finland and Sweden applied for membership in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, breaking decades of political neutrality. Here, the UK's largest police force has been placed under special measures following a series of failures. The Metropolitan Police faced heavy criticism following the death of Sarah Everard, who was killed by a serving officer. It'll now be monitored and scrutinised by Her Majesty's Inspectorate. The Home Secretary and the London Mayor both welcome the move, saying the force has failed to get the basics right. In other news today, Scotland's First Minister is launching a bid for a second independence referendum. The bill, which needs Westminster's approval first, proposes a vote takes place on the 19th of October next year and asks the same question as last time in 2014, which is, should Scotland be an independent country? Boris Johnson has said it's not the time for a referendum and the Supreme Court will now consider the idea. And Dame Deborah James, best known as Bowel Babe, has died aged 40 after battling bowel cancer for almost 5 years. The podcast host and mother of 2, who was diagnosed with the disease in 2016, has raised millions of pounds for research and was made a dame for helping raise awareness about the disease. A former deputy head teacher, as she was at the start of last month, she said she was receiving last end-of-life care, but has continued to campaign and post updates on social media right until the end. The Prime Minister has paid tribute, calling her an inspiration to so many. She passed away surrounded by her family. That's it from GB News tonight. Now back to headliners.
Hello, I'm Andrew Doyle, and welcome to Headliners. And joining me tonight to analyse tomorrow's headlines are Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. How are you both? This is the dream team.
The dream team, yeah. Don't let Nick Dixon hear you say that. But
I'm very jealous, but, you know, I say that for everyone, though.
Yeah, fair.
How are you, Leo?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, what have you been up to this week?
It's only just started.
It has?
Yeah,
it's an unfair question in many ways.
Yeah, I did
what have you
headliners.
achieved? Have you achieved anything?
I did headliners, and then I did headliners again so far.
And you achieved everything you need to achieve.
Sounds like a good week to me. Anyway, let's start by going through tomorrow's front pages, and we start with Wednesday's Telegraph. PM faces cabinet battle over defence spending, so more trouble there for Boris Johnson. And also Sturgeon wrongfoots Westminster by sending Indy Ref 2 fight to Supreme Court. It looks like Nicola Sturgeon is pushing, well, in fact, has confirmed that she's going to go for another referendum, and we're going to be talking about that in just a wee while. Wednesday's Independent now. Johnson faces military spending row, and also scandal hit Met Police put in special measures, as you know. They're in the process of finding a replacement for Cressida Dick. We're going to be talking about that as well. On to Wednesday's Guardian, which leads with Sturgeon in bid for new referendum in late 2023. And they've also got a story there, UK policies on net zero failing, say advisors. And also an image there of the campaigner, Deborah James, who has very sadly died at the age of 40. On to Wednesday's Financial Times now, and they lead with Trump wanted to join armed mob on Capitol Hill, aide says. So that story is never going away. All the twists and turns of that. It's very exciting. Let's move on now to Wednesday's Metro, which has Ghislaine caged for 20 years. This is a strange word to use, caged, OK? No, she's been sentenced to 20 years in prison. We're definitely going to be covering that. That's probably going to be our first story. Moving on to Wednesday's Star. And, of course, they go for a completely different angle, squeaky bum time. And this is a manhunt for a sweaty, rubber-clad man who's been roaming villages in Somerset. We'll probably cover that as well. So those are your front covers. And let's kick right off with Wednesday's Telegraph. And this is Ghislaine Maxwell, who was sentenced earlier today, and she was aiming for 5 years. How much did she get, Josh?
She got 20, but she could have got 30.
She could have got more.
She could have got more. This and a $750,000 fine as well. So,
right.
Just
Ghislaine. Ghislaine Maxwell.
Are you sure it's Ghislaine Maxwell?
I'm sure it's Ghislaine. That's how you
let's
pronounce
get Polly back in here and let's see. She knows the...
Well, I heard Polly earlier say it was Ghislaine, so it's
definitely Ghislaine. You agree with Ghislaine?
Sure. Yeah, let's say Ghislaine
it's not a J?
Instead of the funnier pronunciation of the name.
All right.
Tell us the story.
All right, fine. So, yes, so she's going to jail for 20 years. Obviously, she's already been held in custody in supposedly one of the worst jails in the country for a while now. But the judge has said that her actions were heinous and predatory, lack of remorse, did not accept responsibility. But before she received her judgment, she did stand up and say that my association with Epstein will permanently stay me. It's the biggest regret of my life. They have met him, of course, and she's 60 years old.
So she's going to be 80 when she gets out, so it's not necessarily a full life sentence, not for the rest of her life. But I mean, from what you mentioned, that where she's currently held is supposed to be awful. And someone described the new, wherever she ends up, is going to be like Disneyland in comparison. Yeah. It's going to be much, much better.
Will the security cameras work for the suicide watch? That's what I'm wondering. Because if they don't, then, you know, obviously a lot of the people who are on Epstein's Island, the Clintons, the Gates, all these kinds of people, are probably going to be lumbered. They'll feel like they have to pay her lots of money.
I knew you were going to start mentioning the Clintons and the Gates.
Just because they repeatedly went to Epstein's Island.
That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean they knew anything, and it certainly doesn't mean that they were participating in anything illegal. But the point about that, but it's been politicised, hasn't it, this whole case? And people have been sort of chomping at the bit to try and implicate as many of their political opponents as they can, right? Yeah. People have even talked about Epstein's relationship with Donald Trump back in the before all of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So it's opportunistic for you to mention.
Yeah, but you expect it. You expect it from Donald Trump. Like, Donald Trump doesn't paint himself as some holier-than-thou person who's out to save the world, whereas Bill Gates and Bill Clinton do.
No, you're right. Donald Trump is definitely, he's proud of just going to desert islands with women and underage and whatnot.
Yeah, brags about it openly in interviews and stuff. So you know where you are with it. It's like the Motley Crue. You know where you are with Motley Crue when it's when it's by these kinds of people, it's I think there's something more sinister.
Well, what about the appeal prospects? Because Maxwell's saying that she wants to appeal this sentence, and her lawyer has suggested that actually, given the sheer public attention that has surrounded this case, it means that there wasn't really a possibility of a fair trial. Do you think there's a case there?
There is a case, but I think the bigger detail that we need to look into is that her lawyer is called Bobby Sternheim, and Bobby is Bobbi.
And that offends your sensibilities?
I feel like that's got to be somehow connected to this conspiracy, or like she went to meet her and said, "Oh, you've got a stupid name as well. You're my lawyer. We can understand each other."
So this,
I would never hire a lawyer called Bobby with an I. Come on, mate.
Get a hairdresser called Bobby.
Of course she's got 20 years if she's hiring a lawyer called Bobby with an I.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But I'm glad Josh has got his priorities right. Anyway, we're going to have to move on to the next story now. This is Wednesday's Express, and it looks like Scotland might not have to wait too long for another supposedly once-in-a-generation referendum.
Yeah, exactly. So Nicola Sturgeon has announced a route map to a second Scottish independence referendum, despite a fierce backlash to the drive. I mean, it's the last thing Scotland and the UK needs. At the moment, we're still putting everything back together after COVID. But she proposed that, and this is her words, a legal constitutional referendum should be held on October the 19th, 2023.
Is she going to bypass Westminster with this? Because, I mean, they're saying that she would have to get consent.
Yeah, I don't think she can bypass Westminster. I mean, unless there's some massive upsurge in support for it in Scotland, but which I don't think there is. The last one was supposed to be a once-in-the-generation vote, and, you know, this is 9 years on. That's not a generation.
No,
we're not squirrels.
No, there are 9-year-olds in Scotland with kids now.
That is true.
That is a whole new generation.
This is the thing. I mean, Scotland has been such a failure under 14 years of SNP rule. I mean, part of me wants to see it happen just so that all the Scottish nationalists, all those bigoted, they're like Little Englanders, but for Scotland.
You can't stand the SNP. Whenever you get onto the SNP, the air turns ugly.
I think the rest of the UK should get a vote in it. But a part of me wants to see the absolute bin fire that Scotland would be under an SNP government without being constantly bailed out with £15 billion of Westminster's money every year.
Well, since we've got onto your bugbear, Leo, I'm going to get onto one of Josh's now, because Sturgeon says that she wants Scotland to be, and in fact the question on the ballot is going to be, should Scotland be an independent country? But this is the party that want to take them back into the EU.
Yeah, so that's the excuse that she's using. I mean, she said here, and you'll be pleased to know that I've been working on my accent.
Oh, you're going to do a Scottish accent? Right, brace yourselves, everyone, because...
Scotland. The people of Scotland said yes to an independent referendum.
I mean, I don't know what that was, but A for effort, Josh.
Really?
Yeah, A for effort.
I've literally spent all day working on that.
Maybe it's one of those sort of islands in the Outer Hebrides where...
Clear majority of SNPs committed to that outcome.
What is that?
How did that audition go, Josh? You've got to...
It didn't go well.
I mean, two things with this story. I think, in the last referendum, Scots who lived outside Scotland but in the UK, like me, so many Scots live in England or in Wales or in Northern Ireland, they didn't get to vote. So, we should definitely get a say in it, because we're the ones that have left the country and, experienced the UK. So we're the ones that are most informed to know if Scotland should leave the UK. And the other thing, it should be called Skexit. Instead of, having yes to independence is a very positive message. It should be no to staying in the UK.
But why are we so surprised that Nicola Sturgeon wants to go for another referendum? That is the purpose, that's the raison d'etre of the SNP, that's the whole reason it exists. Yeah. And the fact that they are completely dominant in Scottish politics, there's no competition. The Tories are nowhere, Labour are nowhere. Doesn't that suggest, Leo, that there is, in fact, quite an appetite for Scottish nationalism?
Really, the success of the SNP in Scottish politics really shows the power of a single-issue political party, exit party in UKIP. A single-issue political party can really, do incredible things, because you're selling this golden ticket, this golden ticket that'll take you to utopia.
Yeah, but just one second. But the Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland, Ian Murray, did say that he reckons the whole thing's just a strategy to deflect from their massive failings in government, and I think that's a pretty good idea, and I think maybe Boris should be the next person to hold a referendum.
For English independence.
Yeah, exactly. Deflect away.
Let's move on now to Wednesday's Mail, and Britain apparently is booming, well, on the population front.
Yes, exactly. That's what we need, more people. 59.6 million is now our official figure for England and Wales, because Scotland messed up their census so badly.
They got the
it's
maths wrong.
Yeah, basically. So
Yeah.
that's another added incentive for them to become independent. And it's the interesting thing is that so the numbers have gone up, but the pace within which it has gone up is very varied across England and Wales. Wales, I believe, is very, very low. But London is surging towards megacity status.
What's megacity status?
It's from Judge Dredd.
Dredd.
Oh, I was joking. I thought it meant we're actually going to get Judge Dredd, and he's going to. I mean, he would sort out the Met Police.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I love Judge Dredd. Big, massive fan. But yeah, figures going up. East of England has gone up the most, up 8.3%. Look, this article's just got a crazy amount of numbers. Tower Hamlets in London's gone up 22%. But yes, expansion in Wales much lower, and the Welsh accent from Wales, Ceredigion numbers
Same
have
as the Scottish one.
How
are you trying to say?
Can you do a Welsh accent? And I'll just copy it quickly.
Well, I can sound like I'm not recovering from a stroke.
From Wales. I'm from Wales.
Listen,
anyways, they're dropped by 5.8%.
Josh, I'm going to put a stop to this because you're out of control.
All right, sorry. Okay.
But what I would say is basically the story is that the population is going up and up and up. And actually, why is this? Is this because of immigration?
Well, yeah, this is the interesting thing in this. So the figures have shown that immigration has been largely responsible for population growth since the 1990s. And in 2021, we saw the highest levels of immigration ever. Almost 1 million visas issued. Plus, obviously, there's illegal immigration.
Your unhappiest decade, right?
Well, this is the thing. Politicians say that immigration is essential for countries like the UK because our renewal rate has dropped. People aren't having enough children. But people aren't having enough children because they can't afford a house. Because you want to have a house before you have children.
It's not just that, is it, Leo? It's also because they're really annoying around the house.
No, it really is based on what you can earn and what you can afford, and can you afford a house? And if an influx of labour is coming in every year and undercutting wages, you're not going to be able to earn. That undercuts working class wages.
But don't.
And also,
so you stay at home and then you do a lot more sex stuff.
And there's not going to be more houses available if we bring 1 million more people into the country.
But you can't just have a blanket thing against immigrants. I mean,
no, it's not. It's not a blanket thing. But surely we can have some sort of sensible balance where and we can encourage people in this country to have children instead of just replacing everybody.
What do you think?
I don't want any more kids.
Yeah, I think you've found
But the other bit they're talking about, not just population, is 51% of the population is female, 49% male. That it's interesting to see if that would be any different if people had been allowed to self-ID, which was in the original census, and then they changed it because they were taking to court.
Then it could be anything.
Yeah, it could be 60% female, and that would have changed all the figures, because when this stuff, it goes out to government departments, it goes out to businesses.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why we should record the facts.
Well, that's what they did, finally.
Rather than some made-up things.
Okay,
let's move on now to the Times next. And no sign of Number 10 giving in on tax cuts yet, Leo.
Yeah, so Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak are coming under pressure to help with the cost of living, but so cabinet ministers and backbenchers are asking them to cut taxes, and they're refusing. And I think this is because tax cuts taxes at the moment are actually helping suppress inflation. So because people have less money to spend, that keeps inflation sort of on the supply side. If there's not enough stuff there, then the prices
take all of my money,
rise.
really.
Yeah, and that would really help.
But that doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're cutting people's taxes, people have more money to spend and more money to put into the economy, and surely that's
but if you've got more money to put into the economy, then you can get into this wage inflation spiral that we got into in the Weimar Republic. Well,
someone's been reading The Economist.
You've actually done some research.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, our current inflationary situation is caused by the government printing a lot of money, and it's caused by supply squeezes on energy and on goods coming from China. So it's not just that people have more money to spend. And I think tax cuts would be great. We're currently paying the most tax we've paid in decades, since I think it was the Attlee government.
And the worst thing is that this coincides with me actually having a job.
Exactly.
It's a nightmare.
It was fine when you were unemployed.
Yeah, I was like, tax as much as you want.
Yeah, when you're a comedian just driving to Hull and getting paid 300 quid in cash. You know?
300? You got 300 for that gig?
Let's not fall out over that. Anyway, let's move on now to Wednesday's Guardian. And what is the point of a manifesto pledge if you're not going to stick to it?
What is the point of Boris Johnson? There we go.
Well, that's a bigger question.
There we go. So, yeah, they made a manifesto pledge that they were going to be spending 0.5% plus inflation.
Yeah.
Now inflation's at 9%, and so they basically sort of the number 10
defence spending.
Defence spending. Sorry, the defence budget. Yes, but number 10 put out some feelers on Monday saying, "Look, we're not going to be able to keep that." Everyone kind of freaked out a little bit. Boris Johnson's now said, "No, we're going to do it." But you know what? Like, we don't judge inflation on just one day. Inflation, really, we have to judge it over a couple of years. So
how much
relax.
defence spending do we really need at the moment? It's going to be Satan 2, you know, that massive bomb from Russia. We can't do much about that, can we? You know,
we need to have Jesus 3 ready to meet Satan 2.
Oh, great, let's build Jesus 3.
And in Israel, they've got the Iron Dome, which stops missiles. I mean, I don't know if it would work against the Satan, but it works against the things that, you know...
Can we not get one of those Iron Dome things? How much of that?
I'd like an Iron Dome.
Yeah.
With Putin the way he is, I'd love an Iron Dome over the UK. I don't know how much it costs, but I'd rather
So you wouldn't get sunburn with an Iron Dome, because it would be concealing the... Is that how it works?
No, it's not how it works.
No.
I mean, you should look at the photo. There's a really beautiful photo of all these missiles. It's not actually that beautiful, if I think about it.
It's pretty terrifying, actually.
Yeah, it is pretty terrifying.
Okay, but look, you know, when we're talking about the government not being able to fulfil their manifesto promises when it comes to this kind of these kind of cuts.
Yeah.
To be fair, as one of the sources says, and they point out in this article, that was a different time. When the manifesto was written, there was no pandemic. You know, there was no cost of living crisis. Everything has shifted. Everything.
Yeah, but there was no war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And I think I read something the other day about how we're now running on a deficiency of the stuff that we're giving over means that our own stocks are perilous.
I suppose what I'm saying is people are going to be more forgiving for a failure to fulfil manifesto pledges, given the fact that the whole world has turned upside down.
Yeah, we had 2 decades of so non-inflationary constant expansion. So we had very low inflation.
Please stop reading The Economist, because it's...
So we had low inflation. So this is really, you know, surprised everyone. Everybody was surprised. Oh, we've printed all the money in the world all over again. We're surprised that inflation's happened. I mean, it shouldn't have surprised anybody. But I mean, the government spent £400 billion just over the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's a cost that sprang out of nowhere. Much of that was grafted away. I can't believe there's not more focus on where that money went.
No, exactly, and we could. I think that maybe we could have saved quite a lot of that.
Absolutely.
We saved all of it.
Sticking with The Guardian, the Metropolitan Police in a spot of bother. Leo, what's this about?
Yeah, this is huge. So the Metropolitan Police has been placed under special measures by the official police inspectorate after a series of scandals and concerns about its effectiveness. And Sadiq Khan, who's ultimately responsible for policing in London, he's the Police and Crime Commissioner for London as well as the Mayor, he has said a series of appalling scandals have not only exposed deep cultural problems, but have damaged the confidence of Londoners in the capital's police service. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to be in charge. This happened on your watch. Yeah. All these cultural issues happened on your watch. While he was taking selfies next to, you know, rainbow-painted telephone boxes or whatever, the police was falling apart and becoming a shambles and focusing on policing tweets and you know, misgendering instead of actual crime.
And it's not just the Sarah Everard failure in terms of the very rotten apple in their barrel there. But there have been other issues as well. I mean, Cressida Dick has been quite keen on investigating hate speech and things like that. Complete waste of time when there's all this other stuff going on, right, Josh?
Yeah, so this is a good thing. Look, it's been apparent there's been a problem for a while.
Yeah.
Now it seems like what it's actually going to do, I mean, in terms of concrete steps for fixing it, all it really says is additional scrutiny and support to help make improvements.
Well, they need a better commissioner, don't they?
Yeah.
They need
a commissioner. They don't have a commissioner.
No, but they need someone at the top who can actually be effective in the job.
You're saying they need a man?
And they need to...
I'm not saying they need a man.
I don't know, that was subtext. I'm just saying that was subtext of what you seem to be saying.
That's your misogynistic brain going into overdrive, as it usually does.
Well, they need to switch back to dealing with actual crime. I mean, at the moment, the only way you can get the Met Police to respond to a burglary is if you say the burglar misgendered you.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely true. I know people have been burgled, they just don't bother calling the police because they know nothing's going to happen. Anyway, that is the end of part 1. Hope you enjoyed it. After the break, we're going to have a few more lighter topics: university debt, Nazi gold, and Nazi criminals. Stay tuned.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you. We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, and continuing our deep dive into tomorrow's newspapers, I have with me Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Wednesday's Telegraph now, and 77 years on, people are still being brought to justice over the crimes committed by Nazi Germany. Josh, what's going on here?
So, former Nazi guard, camp guard, was sentenced to 5 years in prison.
Camp guard.
He's a camp guard. Yeah. Exactly. Let's do some Holocaust jokes. He's 101 years old. He's the oldest person so far to be charged. And he's been charged with complicity in war crimes during the Holocaust. His role, they're saying, contributed to the murder of 3,500-ish prisoners. But it's an interesting thing, as opposed to sort of direct evidence of murder, although there is evidence that he also was involved with the murder of some Russian captors and whatever. He was 21 years at the time, but they've also, a few years ago, they also convicted someone who was an accountant at Auschwitz, and basically the people who made the system run, which allowed...
So what do you do with something like this, though? Because it feels like an eon ago, doesn't it? It feels like so long ago. He's over 100 years old. Can he be competent? Can he remember? Can he defend himself effectively?
That's why it was delayed a few times. But at the same time, they did find inconsistency. He swears during the war, I was an agricultural worker, and then they find out that his name is in a bunch of documents.
I suppose that's what I mean. If you're 100, he might think he was an agricultural worker.
Well, yeah, he might think that, but he might also be a Nazi.
Yeah, well, of course. So no statute of limitations then on this in Germany?
No, and I think it's actually good that they're doing it, particularly right now as Russia is committing horrific war crimes in Ukraine, and also detaining Ukrainians in Russia. Obviously, nothing on the scale or severity of the Holocaust, but
yes.
It's a warning, it's a signal to anybody who's complicit in these regimes, who commits war crimes or crimes against humanity, that you can be tracked down and you can be made accountable. You'll never sleep easy.
Yeah, he's probably never going to go to prison.
Well, I mean, there's no point at this point, is there? He hasn't got long left. But I mean,
Good.
But I would suggest that anyone who was complicit in the Holocaust deserves justice, right? That's obvious. But it's interesting that what you say about this is about sending a message, because in this article, this research professor at France's National Centre for Scientific Research is saying that this is about sending signals. But she's saying it's about sending signals to the rise of the far right in France and everywhere else, and absolutely everywhere. I mean, do you think that's what this is about mostly?
I think it's just in any authoritarian context, the moral responsibility of an individual. That, for me, that's a valid message. The message that I personally get from this is that, as what you sort of said earlier, this happened within lived experience. Yeah. And anything that brings us back to that, to show it isn't some mad historical thousands of years ago, 100 years ago.
Doesn't it feel like it, though?
It does feel like it. Of course, the pace of life is so different there. But the reality is there are people alive today who committed those crimes. And when you look into the insanity of the crime, you can't grasp it. It's bonkers.
And this person talking about the rise of the far right in France, Western Europe has been sort of hypnotised to think that only white Western Europeans can be fascistic or far right. And or like Hitler, and that's nonsense. We're seeing it in China, we're seeing it in Russia, we're seeing it in the Middle East. You know, these crimes.
But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this kind of thing won't work as a deterrent against those sorts of people who get involved in those sorts of things. I don't think saying it's a message. What it really is about is holding people to account for their crimes. Surely.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
Let's stick with some Nazi crimes now. Wednesday's Sun brings us a story about the hunt for lost Nazi gold, Leo.
Yeah, that
sounds like an Indiana Jones film or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, if Indiana Jones found it, he'd be $1 billion richer because they think a $1 billion stash thought to have been looted by the Nazis is being hunted inside a Swiss bank after a chilling list was discovered. So this list has 12,000 names of former Nazis and sympathisers who lived in Argentina. So after the Second World War, a lot of Nazis fled to South America. Obviously, there's that film, The Boys from Brazil.
Yeah.
This bank, is it Credit Suisse?
Credit Suisse.
Yeah, so
Credit Suisse. I bet they've got on their Twitter feed. They've got the trans flag and they use pronouns. They pretend to be nice people, but they're absolute scumbags. They've apparently looted this gold and then just kept it. They haven't told.
Okay, just so we can be clear.
Allegedly.
Is it alleged?
Allegedly.
Okay, I just want to make that absolutely clear because obviously. Because these are the sort of people who could sue you. They've got so much money.
Yeah, they could sue me using the Nazi gold they might have taken.
Yeah. Thoughts, Josh?
Well, they did block it. This person found this list in 1984, tried to conduct his own investigation, got blocked every level, so finally gave it over to the Simon Wiesenthal Centre, which fights anti-Semitism, finding Nazis and whatnot. And this is what they're trying to do. Now the lawyers are on it, and to find this money, I mean, I don't know how many people are actually going to benefit from it, but yeah, this money was stolen from Jewish victims and needs to be returned.
Yeah.
Let's move on now. You've probably all heard this guy's Stop Brexit rants outside of Parliament. That's right, it's Josh Howie. No, actually, this is actually a story in Wednesday's Mail, and this is this man who stands outside Parliament. You know the guy, I mean.
Not only do I know of him, I know him.
Of course you do. You emulate him.
I met him during the 2019 election.
What's he like?
He was far less crazy than I thought he would be.
Okay.
Like, I was expecting him to just be totally bonkers and screaming, and he just was sitting there like, yes, hello, God.
And he's called Steve Bray. So what's happened here in this story?
So he has been going outside Parliament and playing loud music. And now I thought he was, because he was permanently out there.
Yeah.
Turns out now he's actually just rocking up like when he thinks Boris Johnson's around or
He does it on Prime Minister's Questions.
Yeah, exactly. So he's not even really committed to it. I respected him. I was like, yes, you're mental, but at least you're sticking to it. But now it's like, what, once a week or twice a week? No, mate.
Yeah, but to be fair, over a number of years. I mean, he's committed.
I don't know if he deserves to be called Brexit man. I personally feel like someone else might step up to that role.
I bet this time next year you're going to be in a tent outside Parliament.
Just better than Glastonbury.
With that tattoo on your face of the EU flag like the rest. Look, but it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because this has come about because of the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, which is something that I've been complaining about a lot on my show because I just think it's a draconian measure against the right to peaceful protest. This guy's playing the Bay City Rollers. I mean, you could get him on grounds of taste, but the point is, it's not fair, is it? He should, particularly in Parliament Square, isn't that where people should be able to gather and express their disapproval?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this new legislation that's come through is supposed to be able to deal with, people like him or Extinction Rebellion who cause disruption and cause noise. But yeah, protest, you should be allowed to disrupt and cause noise. Otherwise, you're probably not even leaving the house.
Well, he's not being abusive, right? Well, some people have claimed he's been abusive. He says he hasn't. So there's that. But he's not causing harassment. He's just a bit nutty.
And this legislation, the way it's worded, is worded so vaguely that anybody making any noise or being anywhere could be perceived to be causing an obstruction or causing.
I mean, this is exactly. It really comes down to the difference between public nuisance, which is what this law is meant to know, or actual political protest. And who is the person who judges what the difference and what exactly is one and what is the other?
But that's the problem with this bill, is that it puts it into the hands of the police.
That's what I just said.
No, but I said it. I said it in a more articulate and concise way.
All right, you're the boss.
All right.
Well, also, to deal with Extinction Rebellion, you need less legislation. Just decriminalise running them over. Take that law off the books.
I'm just going to say that neither I nor GB News endorses that
I do, though.
view.
I do.
Josh, you keep your mouth shut. Times next. It looks like universities are being warned about going woke, going broke, Leo.
That's right. Here? So the Minister for Higher Education, Michelle Dolan, has written to universities warning them about signing up to equality and diversity schemes that could hamper free speech.
Yeah.
And she singled out the Race Equality Charter, which is offered by the education charity Advance HE, and has been criticised as a money-making exercise similar to the Stonewall Diversity Champions scheme. These people, these charities bring in a lot of money. The stuff like Stonewall Diversity Scheme, it's sort of like a mafia protection racket. So they go into companies and they say, oh, nice company you got here. Shame if shame if you weren't allowed to place ads in The Guardian because you didn't have the Stonewall Diversity Scheme stamp. And then they give them the company gives them money, they give them the stamp, and then they can place ads in The Guardian and do all that other stuff.
That is it. I mean, they effectively reward them with points for having the opinion that they want them to have.
Yeah.
And that can't work with a university, can it, with higher education?
Well, no, it can't, and that's why they're stepping up to say this. But like you said, the money, 15.2 million was made last year by that particular company, and its chief executive was paid £172,000.
I'm going into that business.
Exactly. It's an absolute con. And this company, Advance HE, they were in the papers a few months ago, do you remember the Times, because they had this trans discrimination policy with, and Cambridge academics rejected it essentially and kicked up a big fuss. But they were trying to push that they had a requirement, like an enforced requirement for a collective understanding of the belief that gender can be chosen.
Yeah,
which
so
is a
bang
very
goes the biology
slippery
department.
Exactly. Exactly. That's it. And they fortunately, the academics fought back against it. But this is what these people are. One example of the many sort of things that are being pushed by companies like this, and it is just a massive scandal. Like Black Lives Matter in America, making all that money, buying mansions with it. Yeah.
And this is all through corporate and HR guidance now as well, like ESG, so environmental, social, and governance, which governs pretty much all investment and all corporations now, and equality, diversity, and inclusion. And in most cases, it's fixing a problem that doesn't exist. We're not a bunch of raving, racist, homophobic, transphobe misogynists anymore.
Well, apart from
we're
not talking about this Freudian slip.
Sticking with the Times now, and I do hope graduates have a good accountant ready, Josh.
Wow, the numbers involved in this. 3,000% surge in graduates who owe six-figure student loans. And that's in a single year. It's gone up that much. There are 6,500 British graduates who now owe over £100,000.
Are you looking forward to when your kids go to university?
Well, you know what? I've actually always been very honest with them. I said, you guys don't have to go. Find a job that you love. Or hobby, find a hobby, and if you can anyway finance it or whatever, they don't have to go to... For me, university, I went. I'm very lucky to have gone there at a time, certainly when it was cheaper or free, actually.
Yeah.
But, and I learned some stuff, which is great. I learned how to think, but I also got to meet women and... drink alcohol, and that was great.
You just come on this show to brag.
I did meet more women than you at university.
You did. I will give you that. But I mean, it's like when I went to university, I was the last year where you could get a full grant. It was a means-tested grant because I didn't have any money. I got all the money, and that was great. And I could do it, and I didn't end up with this massive debt. And maybe I wouldn't have gone if I thought I was going to leave with.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I hadn't gone because I went to university and everybody was thick. And because everybody goes to university now. I think 60% of the population, 50 or 60% of the population go. You tell me, like 50% or 60% of the population are bright enough to go to university. They should just close loads of universities and just keep it for the very smartest people.
Well, I mean, it's not for everyone. And there are apprenticeships that are much more valid for certain types of people. It's like, I wouldn't have gone to a metalwork apprenticeship because I would have, cut my fingers off probably and got it all right. It's not for me. But likewise, some people aren't right for university. And there's no shame in that. I don't understand why there's a stigma in not going to university.
Well, it was obviously pushed so much at that time, and that was seen as attaining, like the goal to attain was to go to university, as opposed to actually having some practical skills.
Yeah, and if you're a welder, plumber, electrician, something like that, if you've got a trade, then it's much more fun work than working in an equality, diversity and inclusion department, and you're earning a lot more money.
Yeah, they do earn a lot of money. I've even heard of academics retraining as plumbers because it's
so that's the GB News. Don't go to university, everybody.
Right, well, that's the end of part 2 now, and coming up, the National Lottery in decline, are heat waves getting worse, and the town terrorised by a man in a rubber suit, Josh.
Josh,
we'll see you in a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest
and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, and my lovely guests, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. We're going to go through this part of the show. We're going to look at the more unusual stories of the day, those that normally end up at the back of the newspaper. And let's start with this one from Wednesday's Guardian, and one of our national institutions in decline. Leo, what's this about?
Yeah, so national lottery ticket sales have been hit by the cost of living crisis, according to Camelot, who run the lottery in the UK. But they won't be running it for much longer. It's been awarded to another operator. But they blamed pandemic restrictions for lottery sales declining in 2020 and 2021. And more recently, they said the cost of living crisis has hit lottery ticket sales. I don't know. I mean, I think they're just finding excuses wherever they can. I think people see what the money is being spent on and don't want to be part of it. It doesn't feel like charity buying a lottery ticket when it's going to ballet and opera and other follies of the rich who don't deserve it.
What you mean the creative arts?
No, they're not doing some Puccini from 500 years ago. That's
culture,
not creative.
Leo, it's called culture.
No, we've got culture now. And what we've got right now with the lottery is a tax on the poor and desperate to pay for a night out for the wealthy people.
You choose to buy the ticket.
We should have a tax on the opera to subsidise people's lottery tickets. That's the way it should work.
This is where you're wrong, because,
I'm not wrong.
Well, let me explain why, and then you can shoot me down. But the tax on the opera, for instance, means that there are tickets that are affordable by poorer people. That's the point. The National Opera has tickets that are like 10 quid up at the back.
That's 10 times as much as a scratch card.
Well, OK, but, it's not a tax because you don't have to.
And also you've got to get to Bath or wherever it is.
So,
it isn't a poncy town like that.
But, Josh, what do you think?
Well, the thing that hits me about the story is it's a bit sad. Camelot have been running it for 30 years. I didn't realise they'd lost their licence.
Yeah.
It's been handed out to a company that runs lotteries in Austria, and Italy, and Greece. I don't know. I thought the whole point of Brexit was that we wouldn't have these companies coming in and taking our money from the people who take our money.
Misunderstanding of people's idea of Brexit or why they voted for Brexit.
You know what? I've never actually read anything about Brexit.
You just got angry about it.
I'm just going along with the flow.
I would have thought that in a cost of living crisis, lottery tickets would go up because more people would be like, they're desperate and they're like, well, this is my last chance. This is my last.
I think because of the deregulation in the gambling industry, there's a lot more opportunities to gamble and bet your money.
All right.
Yeah, but it's scratch cards that have gone down the most, and I think those are the most addictive.
All right.
Cashless society. We don't have coins to scratch off that little.
That's what you can do with the edge of a credit card, I think. I think you can. I've tried that. I'm going to take you to an opera. Yeah. I'm definitely going to
Don't threaten him.
I've been to an opera.
That's a punishment.
Which one?
It was either the Barber of Seville or the Merchant of Venice. It was a something of something.
The Merchant of Venice is a play, not an opera.
It was the other one, Barber of Seville. Right. But it was English language. It was English language.
You got away with that one.
No, it was English language, and so it was rubbish because you could understand everything they were saying. So it didn't sound romantic, like when they're singing in Italian.
I want to see the
It was
Lion
just like they're literally just saying stuff in the place. They're like, bitch,
you should watch...
bring me my ladder. I want my ladder.
Okay, we'll go and watch Lion King's a very good opera.
That's not an opera. It's a musical.
That's people singing. And...
It's animals singing. It's not an opera.
Sound of Music.
And musicals don't need lottery funding to be sustainable.
What about comedy?
Anyway, look, let's move on. It's not an art show. It's not an art show. Let's move on to the Times next. And J.K. Rowling can never seem to catch a break, Josh.
Well, I think she's done all right. But
yeah,
oh, poor old J.K. Rowling, boo-hoo-hoo. So this is Tom Felton, who played Draco Malfoy in the films.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
I don't know, whatever. There's some wizard baddie in the films, or not. I don't know. I don't like the books particularly. Sorry, J.K., I'm a big fan of you. And he was asked on Sky News in an interview. Someone said, why do you think that she's J.K. Rowling is particularly absent from all this 25th anniversary stuff that's going on from the publication?
She doesn't appear much in the
stuff that's going on at the moment. And then out of shot, there's a public relations person can be heard saying, no, next question, please, we're not going to answer that. And then he had to sort of remain silent.
But it's not like a major gotcha. It's not like something where they have to drag the person into the car.
Well, obviously it was, according to this PR person, felt like it would have been like this whole big hoo-ha.
It's not like, were you on Epstein's Island? Well, this is like, why can't the creator of the books and the films be acknowledged a little more?
Absolutely. Well, the PR company said J.K. Rowling is not connected to Warner or Tom Felton, and they didn't feel it was relevant. She's not connected to Warner, who have made millions of pounds off it. Not connected to the actor who... That's why we heard of him in the first...
her character.
Yeah.
I would suggest there's a slight connection.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick my neck out there.
Wincy connection. And then when he did actually address it later, to be fair, but he sort of went, I'm the last person to weigh in opinions. He did the classic, I'm too stupid to know about stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe
he's an actor.
Leo,
is he available for headliners?
That was my stupid person impression, by the
way. He does a great Scottish accent. This is insane. It's like communist China, or worse than communist China, because it's...
Yeah, at least they say J.K. Rowling wrote her own book.
Yeah. They acknowledge her. They haven't airbrushed her from all the party photos.
Yeah. Do you think there will come the time where they'll be issuing her books without her name on it? I just wonder. I mean, people are so they think she's so toxic, but she's never said anything toxic at all.
None of them read her essay that she wrote that was very painfully pointed out how she's for trans rights or whatever.
Yeah. Is it as bad as the books?
Well,
that might be a reason.
It doesn't have as many twists. Let's say that. So Wednesday's Mail now, and no amount of aircon will save us from future heat waves. Apparently, Leo, it's getting pretty bad, right?
No, that's the opposite, in fact.
I got that completely wrong.
Global warming, I always suspected this, global warming is not always to blame for severe droughts. Scientists say...
always.
Yeah, that's a
blame.
Let's get to the end of the story. So scientists say... these are proper scientists from a university, they're professors and stuff. They say climate change's effect on extreme events can be overestimated. They do say the link to heat waves is unequivocal. So the co-author of this study, Friedrich Otto of Imperial College London, that's one of the good ones.
Friedrich Otto?
So he said that the impact...
Josh, these accents of yours are so offensive.
Yeah. But this is obviously...
I don't even know if he's German. He's just got a German name.
Friedrich Otto is definitely German.
He could be born here.
The weather is really bad.
It's TV show or something.
Okay, so...
But this is obvious. Obviously, climate change scientists overestimate and overrepresent the impact of global warming on extreme weather.
No, it's not saying that.
No, that is exactly what it's saying. So if you, like Neil Ferguson, the COVID scientist, he says everything's a pandemic. Oh, we've got a pandemic. He's predicted about 13 of the last 3 pandemics.
I mean, to be fair, he gets his numbers quite wrong. He's got a track record of...
He gets his numbers wrong, and climate change science is even more complicated. So, I mean...
but that doesn't mean it's not happening.
And there's issues like... So when the world warms up, because more people die from the cold than from heat. So when the world warms up, so far, I mean, it's going to change in the future, but so far, climate change has actually saved lives.
Josh, I think we need a counter view.
Yeah, exactly. OK, this is one of the things that these scientists that you love so much are saying. A heat wave previously had a 1 in 10 chance of occurring, is now 3 times as likely as occurring, and the peaking at the temperatures is now 1 degree higher. So climate change is having an impact. And what they're also saying is what we're underestimating is the impact on people's lives. And places like India, Pakistan at the moment like that, temperatures have gone like to 120 degrees Fahrenheit.
Floods in Bangladesh.
For example, and this was made 30 times more likely because of climate change. And it's in India at the moment. It's fine for the rich who can afford air conditioning and stuff. For the poor, they're literally dying in the streets.
Well, that was a very balanced segment, I feel. We got both sides there.
And with some German impressions.
And with a couple of German impressions. You can get them into any story, can't you, Josh?
I'm trying to.
Yep, I know you are. Wednesday's Independent now. We have a mass extinction on our hands, Josh.
Yes, so Antarctica.
Is that how they speak there?
Yeah, it's famous. So their only native insect, which is actually a reason to move to Antarctica because I hate insects, is being driven to extinction by global warming.
It's an Antarctic midge.
It's an Antarctic. I hate midges. Hate midges. So this is a kind of a happy story, maybe?
No. The extinction of a species is not a happy story, Josh.
A midge? Is there any more annoying?
But this is a pretty impressive midge because this midge can live in these Arctic conditions.
It's flightless as well, so it won't fly into your hair.
It's not. It's exactly.
Your head. It won't fly into your
Thank you so much.
But that's what's annoying about midges is that they bump into you all the time. These ones just creep around the ground, minding their own business, and they're going extinct now because of climate change, Leo. So now can you see a downside?
Well, yeah, but they say so Antarctica's only insect is going extinct because of climate change, because it's getting warmer. Antarctica is still pretty cold. Midges can live in Scotland, which is a lot warmer than Antarctica. So there's going to be other things that can live in Antarctica. I don't think this is a disaster.
Yeah, but this particular native one that only lives in Antarctica, I think that's native to Antarctica, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So why do we need it? Could somebody explain why we need
it? It has a knock-on effect. It's like it affects the ecosystem.
Yeah, bears
of
live off the midges.
But another midge,
I don't know if that's true at all.
another like a Scottish midge, will fill that niche because it's a bit warmer.
You want to export midges from Scotland to Antarctica?
If that's what it takes to make climate change scientists shut up.
For goodness' sake! It says here in the article that this insect it lives for 2 years. Most of that time, it's a larva. not much of a life, is it?
What does it eat?
I don't know.
Living moss and Praziola crispy algae.
Maybe it's better off.
That sounds like the diet I'm on.
I think it's better off extinct, maybe, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on now to Wednesday's Metro. And when's a party not a party? When it's an Airbnb. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. That's right, yes. You're not allowed to have parties at Airbnbs
They've
anymore.
had this for a while, though, haven't they?
So, yeah, they brought it in with the pandemic. They banned parties just to stop, the spread of COVID.
Yes.
But they've decided, I guess it makes a lot less hassle for them. They're not going to get complaints from the Airbnb owners and then have to, do refunds and fines and all the rest of it. So they've decided to make it permanent. They saw a 44% year-after-year drop in the rate of party reports since implementing the policy in 2020, so they've decided to keep it.
But this is quite a good idea, because if you've got an Airbnb and you've got a big house and people take it for parties, if you live nearby or next door, you must be sick of it.
Yeah.
Because it's all very well if your neighbours have a party once a year, you can make your peace with it. But if you have different people in every week and they're constantly having parties, I think that must get... Stag do every week. It must be really annoying, right?
I'm sure it's incredibly annoying. But the good news is also they've lifted, though, its 16-person limit.
So they can rent it out to as many...
to more people, which means now, my family and I can go away with one other family.
And is that what you want to do?
Yeah, to share the burden.
Let's move on now to the Mirror next. And have you ever been accused of complaining about something just to get it for free, John?
Yeah, so this restaurant owner, who does not sound like a particularly good human being, let's find out. He says that people have been complaining about... This is at a fish and chip shop, by the way.
Well, it's a chip shop in Cleethorpes.
Cleethorpes, yeah, just in case they want to sue us. Are saying that the people are complaining are chavs who don't want to pay. They're going on, eating on the food, they seem happy enough with the food while they're eating it, and then they're like, oh, this was disgusting, whatever. But actually, when you listen to some of the examples of people just saying their fish was cold, they're at another family, their sausages weren't right, nuggets, all this stuff, and they said they had to eat because they were so hungry, and then everyone was complaining. But this is the thing that most horrible thing about this story is the restaurant owner refused to speak to them and sent out these 18-year-old workers these kids to deal with the complaints.
He has complete disdain for his customers. The fact that he says they're chavs who don't want to pay Isn't the customer always right? No, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say, but say it anyway. Put us out of our misery.
Let's just hear what the customer had to say, and then we can make our own minds up.
Okay. Do an impression, please.
So because I can't. I don't know what accent they've got.
It's a Cleethorpes accent.
Could be from anywhere. I'm guessing it's not from Kensington and Chelsea. Okay. So they said, me and my wife ordered the sausage. It wasn't our first choice, but our first choice wasn't available, which suggests they cook fresh. And it was my wife who said it wasn't right. We were that hungry that we ate it anyway. There was nothing wrong with the chips. Now,
okay, but
if it was that bad, you wouldn't eat it.
Yeah, but if you're hungry,
then you send up. You say there's something wrong with my sausage. Can I get one of those fish cakes?
That's not the way restaurants work. I mean, you can.
Yes, it is. That's exactly how restaurants work.
I've drunk a whole bottle of champagne and said it wasn't good enough. Got my money back.
Have you?
No, but I could. I could do that.
But if you take a bite of the sausage and say this isn't right, the restaurant, or in this case, chip shop.
Yeah, but he called it chavs.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's but then they are also they did complain, and that's what's suspect to me, because I would never complain. I could be served like dog food, I would just be bitter and angry and just sit there fuming, and then just go home and be like afterwards. So the fact they complain suggests that there's obviously something wrong with them.
That's very very British of you.
Yes,
Josh.
exactly.
Let's move on to the Daily Star next. And a village is being terrorised by the return of the Gimp man.
Yeah, the Gimp man.
Who's the Gimp man?
I'm really hoping it's an addition to the Marvel universe, but. There's a black latex-clad pervert dubbed...
Oh, photo. We see some photo.
We've got a photo.
Well, I don't know if that's actually him.
He's got some man boobs.
Oh, I think that's an artist's impression of what he
So this guy's roaming at these villages in Somerset?
Yeah, so Claverham and Yatton. I hope I pronounced them right.
These are small villages,
2 years ago, he was roaming around there, and police, despite arresting 2 people, they never got to the bottom, no pun intended, of the mystery. But on Sunday, he came back. So this is June 26th. The Gimp man reportedly walked up to Kira Elston, who's 19, and her boyfriend as they walked home at 1 a.m. So teaching assistant Kira, who fled home with her boyfriend, said it was the most terrifying experience of her life.
Is he actually doing... Is this like the Beast of Jersey? You know, the guy on Jersey used to dress up in the fetish stuff. Because he used to go into people's bedrooms. I mean, how terrifying is that?
Oh, really?
Pull them out with a noose, and it was... absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
But... It's not that. He's not actually... This guy isn't actually doing
He's just sort of
anything.
going up to people. So it was on Sunday, June 26th. Leo wasn't on the show that day, were you?
I was, actually.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
okay,
I was.
All right, fair enough. Clever. But yeah, that person does... You know what? They've probably been gone for a while because they've been sort of protesting women meeting up, fighting for women's rights. They look like one of those trans rights activists.
I mean... Is this just someone playing a trick? Is this like... Do you remember that when there was that rush of people dressing up as clowns and pretending to frighten people at night with, like, fake chainsaws and stuff? Is that what this is? Is it like a trick?
Well, don't ask me. I'm not in that brain, the mental person who's wearing weird... I can't even...
Maybe he's just worried about the rain. Maybe he's just, like...
You think it's like some sort of umbrella, very close umbrella?
You get very moist inside, I think. Not that I know what a Gimp outfit's like.
You know suspiciously a lot about
I think it's just context. I mean, if he was doing this in Camden, nobody would even notice.
Well, let's move on quick. We've got time for one more story, I think. And the Mirror now. If you are thin, you are privileged, Leo.
Oh, yeah. So an Instagram influencer has shared her dismay after spotting a gorgeous outfit in River Island. She really wanted to try, only to realise she picked the biggest size, but she couldn't get the trousers past her thighs, and there were no bigger sizes available. Yeah, because you're fat. Like, lose weight. If you want to wear these clothes, lose weight. You think the clothes are wrong? You've picked the biggest size of the clothes, you still can't get them on. Obviously, you need to lose some weight.
Don't you think these shops should cater for all sizes and all shapes and, you know...
Well, I think the Gimp outfits...
Up to infinity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, to be fair, there are shops that just specialise in bigger clothes, and why not go there? What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, because there's probably too much hassle. She'd, like, run out of breath. Walking the extra 4 metres. Yeah. Look, when I think thin privilege, I think this. It's like, maybe they've got fat privilege, you know?
You think?
No, I don't know. I was just thinking. But it does annoy me when it's like people complain, you know, like same on airplane flights, and you know when you see fat, you know, when people write and complain. Yeah, and they're like, oh my god, this. That for me is fat privilege. When you've got the thin person.
I'm going to have to end this now before we get into some serious fat shaming. That's all we've got time for. We'll see you tomorrow for Headliners at 11 o'clock. See you then. Farewell.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here. Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio,
On digital, absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you. We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good evening on Farage tonight. Is this our 1937 moment, as the boss of Britain's armed forces says, as we face, he says, a big threat from Putin? We'll look at why two convicted paedophile criminals are not being deported to Pakistan. Yes, it's our old friend, ECHR, once again. And I'll be joined on Talking Pints by Lord Nigel Dodds, for many, many years, Deputy Leader of the DUP, and a man who served with the late, great Ian Paisley. We'll find out more about him too. But before all of that, let's get the news with Polly.
Nigel, thank you. The top story on GB News. The UK's largest police force has been placed under special measures following a series of failures. The Met Police faced heavy criticism following the death of Sarah Everard, who was killed by a serving officer. It'll now be monitored and scrutinised by Her Majesty's Inspectorate. The Home Secretary and London Mayor welcome the move, saying the force has failed to get the basics right. Sadiq Khan says the next challenge is appointing a new commissioner.
I will not be supporting the appointment of a new commissioner unless he gets it, unless he understands the challenges we face, unless he has an action plan to address some of the issues raised today by the police inspectorate, unless he is a reforming commissioner. Londoners deserve better. My job as the mayor is to make sure we get better. Scotland's First Minister is launching a bid for a second independence referendum. The
The bill, which needs Westminster's approval first, proposes a vote for the 19th of October next year, asking the exact same question as in 2014, should Scotland be an independent country? Boris Johnson says it's not the time for a referendum, and now it's up to the Supreme Court to decide. Nicola Sturgeon says she won't allow Scottish democracy to be a prisoner of any Prime Minister.
The Conservatives have just 6 MPs in Scotland, barely 10% of Scottish representation, and yet they have ripped us out of the EU.